Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I'm your host, Angie Grant, and I am so excited to bring to you the brilliance and gifts of Michelle Lamansky.
Lamansky, yeah, you got it
Oh,
right.
yes, I got it right. So, I'm so excited for what you're going to be sharing today with our audience. It's very unique from any of the guests that I've had thus far, so that's super exciting. So, Michelle, uh, hi, welcome.
Thank you.
So I would love to just start off this episode with hearing about you, hearing about your journey, and maybe tell us a little bit about what led you to what you're doing today, what you're passionate about today.
I am a trauma aware, really mental health aware yoga instructor. And so I'm an RYT 500 and I'm also a holistic health coach. So I am honestly just really passionate about helping women. I think so many people are stuck in this constant state of stress just because of kind of the world that we live in right now. And I'm really passionate about helping people determine whether or not they're there, and then if they are, getting out of it. So, I guess I started, primarily yoga is my medium, if you will. Um, and I started doing yoga about 20 plus years ago. I found yoga when I was a very, very anxious young woman. And I didn't actually, I hated my first class. I was like, this is for the birds. I went to a really hard class. I didn't know what I was doing. Everyone else did. I swore I would never go back. But about a year later, I made my way back for, reasons that don't really matter anymore. But anyway, I made my way back and I had a great teacher. She was really calm. I didn't know why I needed to be there exactly. I just knew that I felt calm when I left. And there was like something deep in me that was like, you need to keep coming back here. So I kind of have stuck it with it ever since.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I hadn't really shared any of my story with you. You and I just met, but so I'm an adoptive mom. I'm also a bio mom. And when my son came to us with a ton of trauma and attachment difficulties, we adopted at the age of 5. And I felt so prepared to like handle all the behaviors. I dove into trauma training and attachment training, and I worked in behavioral health for, I don't know, like 13 years before I became his mom. And so like my daughter grew up in like the ABA world because I would like take her to work with me. And so I was like, it will be hard, but not out of my scope.
Right.
And pretty quickly having my son and trying to parent him and like cognitively I knew that dynamic of trauma, but being in the space where I my body quickly started reacting in a trauma type way that like being in
Yeah.
his presence, I would have this like rush of adrenaline and I'm hyper vigilant and it felt so gross and I didn't know what to do about it. So when I saw your message about joining my podcast, I was like, oh, this is going to be golden because I know I'm not alone. So I would love to
No,
hear from that perspective, right? Like, I know that my listeners, many of them have that same experience that when they're with their kids, they want to respond to what their kids need, but they're really in this place where all they can do is react. So I'd love to hear more from you.
yeah, I think that's super common. I think that's very interesting that, it sounds like you had all the book knowledge. And I think it's just kind of a testament to how quickly that, not necessarily that that went away, but if I'm understanding you right, it's like just the emotion and the reactivity kind of takes over. And the book knowledge, it's like inaccessible at times, right? When you're in that emotional reactive state. Um, yeah, so I think, certainly I'm not a parenting expert, but I do think from my own experience, I'm a parent, that you cannot take your kid to a place of calm or like emotional relief, if you will, without yourself being in a place of calm and emotional relief. Is that the right word? Like a nice, calm emotional state, right? In a rest or digest state as opposed to a fight or flight. And I think so many of us, whether your child has had trauma or not, I think even just a tantrum, which is of course a very normal toddler behavior, can send us into this state of like, I feel like I
Mhm.
always felt like when my kids tantrum, you feel it in your body and you're like, how is this
Yeah.
happening? It's their tantrum, but it feels like it's in your body, right? So I think just the ability to recognize what's happening in your body and say, and that's so much what mindfulness and yoga and breathing and just taking the time to notice is about, is just the awareness and noticing, my kid is having a hard time, but also I'm having a hard time. And it becomes very triggering, right?
Yeah.
So doing these mindfulness exercises and the breathing exercises can bring you to a state where you're more aware of your own position. What's the word? Your own state, so
Yeah.
that you can then regulate that, which you can do that very quickly with breath work. Like there's a couple of quick breath work practices because I think with parenting, you want to get regulated as quickly as possible because your child needs you quickly, right? Your child doesn't need you 10 minutes from now, they need you now, especially if they're young and they're
Yeah.
tantruming, right? So there's some things you can do very quickly to just feel your feet on the ground, things like that. Did I answer the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, and like I didn't have this awareness then, but like listening to you doing the work that I've been doing is that um I did know what to do up in my head and my body was physically doing all the things that I was trained to do, but what I didn't know and wasn't doing was the in, right? Like all the out was I was um taking actions that were based on all of the experts and all of my training, but I wasn't not I when I reflect back on all, I mean, I have like binders and binders and I've spent hundreds of hours in trainings and I don't think any of them focused on me. They were all about you have this child with these challenges. And I think that, like I said, I worked in the behavioral health field for a long time too. And the training is all about them, about the child and regulating them and, using systems and strategies and behavior modifications to support them. And it's not about us. And that to me was like the shift when I started working on me, everything about my relationship with my son changed. It went from like contentious and scary. And I was afraid to be around him because my fight or flight mode was in constant um,
Always.
motion. It never turned off. And I had to do that work on me. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about breath work, mindfulness, maybe some things that you use in your practice.
Well, I think it's important to mention at least that, like what is mindfulness, right? So we're not talking about being Zen all the time. That's not going to happen. We're never going to reach that, and that's okay. It becomes about recognizing earlier when, like, what your triggers are and when you're maybe about to be triggered. Like, if you can see you're like approaching something that's probably going to, put me in this state of fight or flight and addressing it earlier in the timeline as opposed to waiting until you're already in a state of overwhelm or overreacting and then trying to fix it, right? So eventually, when you start practicing these mindfulness, you become more and more and more and more aware of the thoughts that are in your head and the thoughts, like, and what's happening outward.
Yeah.
So I keep coming back to the example of a temper tantrum, but like you can kind of see those are big for me. Those are things that
I get
was
it.
a little challenging for me, and in that I really did not want to react to those, but I did feel my body tensing up a little bit. Um, but when you would see those coming on, recognizing like they are having a hard time, they're not giving me a hard time. This is not about me, and then coming back to this state of being able to hold space for the tantrum as opposed to reacting to it, right? Like, or if your child is yelling at you, holding space for that as opposed to yelling back, right? So some techniques that you can use for that are, first of all, just having like I'm a big proponent of 5 minutes a day of some type of practice, like just in the morning. So every morning I will either drink my tea or my coffee outside and listen to the birds. If it's too cold or I live in a place where it is disgustingly hot and humid right now, so if it's too hot, I will do it next to my window and maybe I'll do a meditation or a breathing exercise instead, or I will even just stretch in my bed for a few minutes, like just sit on the edge of the bed, touch my toes, do some morning stretches, just taking those times that are silent, that are without my phone, or if they maybe I have a meditation going through my earbuds, or I'll do my own meditation. I think just taking those, even 2 to 5 minutes a day. I have to wake up before my kids. Like that's a thing. Whatever time they wake up, I set my alarm a few minutes before them so that I can have that moment to set my intention for the day. Um, and then what else? Where were we? Help me focus.
Well, we were talking about being more mindful and intentional in those moments when perhaps like our toddler is having a tantrum or our child who has maybe more challenging behaviors, like us watching those precursors and preparing ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So what can you do in the moment? So this would be things like feeling your feet on the ground. So wherever you're at, bonus points if you can take your shoes off, but just feel your feet on the ground, both feet flat on the earth. And then just maybe imagine if you can close your eyes, great. If you have to leave them open, that still works. But imagine like roots growing out of your feet. I know it's really weird, but imagine roots going out of your feet into the earth to just have this sensation of feeling grounded. Because I think anxiety can be this sensation of like up, 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 and just the ability to refocus on the ground can really bring you into the moment and into your body. Also, always breath work. So I think breathing is such a beautiful thing. It's something that we do unconsciously, but when you bring it into a conscious effort, right? You're going to breathe in some capacity no matter what. But when you bring it into a conscious breath, you can activate the vagus nerve, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to be that rest and digest state. So you're looking at, I love square breathing. So that would just be inhaling for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. It's really easy, really basic. You can do it. Even if there's 100 people around, you can do it. No one notices. And that will always bring you into a state that is a little bit more calm.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And and things that I think in my realm, like I said, these aren't the things like, it's almost like this like side thing, like, oh, and make sure you do self-care. Make sure you take care of yourself.
It
But
becomes another thing on the to-do list that's really, it becomes
Mhm.
stressful, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, and in the work that I do too, I focus a lot because I think it's so interwoven in all of the layers of us as parents of our kids who are struggling. Is I focus on something called the 9 resiliency keys, and the reason that I focus on them is that the foundation is self-worth and lovability. And
I love
what
that.
I find time and time and time again is that parents aren't taking this time. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not getting up 15 minutes before the kids get up to take care of themselves because they don't value themselves. They're struggling with that self-worth, right? Like I give so much to everybody else, I don't have time for me. And I think your message ultimately is you must take care of you in order to take care of the kids.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, like 100%. You cannot, you cannot lead other people to calm if you are not calm yourself. That
Yeah.
includes your kids. You can't, and modeling, right? Like I think when you're not taking care of yourself, what are you modeling to your kids? You're modeling to your daughters that they don't have to take care of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think I think setting that example is very difficult. I don't want to make anyone feel bad for not doing it because it's challenging. You would be very intentional about doing that. But I think the payoff is so great. And there's always this feeling that we don't have enough time, right? I know like we all have 1,000 things on our to-do list. They all feel like it's 25 fires that we have to put out. But I think when people think meditating is like thinking about nothing. And it's not. Meditating is observing the thoughts that are there without judgment, with kindness, allowing your maybe criticisms to soften. And I think after you take a few minutes to just observe those thoughts, even if those thoughts are things on your to-do list, at the end of the meditation, frequently you realize that those aren't actually 25 fires. It's one fire that makes everything else seem just as important because your focus is there. but you can actually see more clearly that I thought I had 25 fires that I had to put out, but actually 10 of them aren't really fires. Those are things I don't have to worry about. Another 10 of them are things that can wait till tomorrow or things that I can delegate. And then these 5 things are things that, are actually time sensitive and critical. So giving yourself the 5 to 10 minutes, really just the 5 minutes a day to have that quiet time gives you more time in the day, if that makes sense. Because
It
everything
does.
is calm and clear. So you can see very clearly what the priorities need to be instead of getting caught in that everything is important. I have to do all of it mentality that I think a lot of women, a lot of parents get get caught up in.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, it really echoes to that idea that we feel like, trying a new strategy to calm our kids' behaviors, we think like, I don't have more time to handle their behaviors. And I feel so strongly that as parents, we're expending so much time and energy and heart on on trying to manage our kids' behaviors. And yeah, you're right. It isn't easy implementing a new strategy, a new system, a new routine for us. It does feel initially like it's going to take more time, like it's going to be harder, but that's just because it's new, right? And so that same sentiment about, you know, I often hear, well, I'm already doing so many things to handle my kids' behaviors. And yeah, you probably are. You're probably wasting a lot of energy. And I mean that with such a kind heart, but you're
Yeah, I
wasting
agree.
so much energy. Again, like that was a great analogy about you're wasting all your energy trying to put out 25 fires. But what if you were more aware of yourself, those triggers, and could take care of you first? It's not selfish, but take care of you first so that you can be more present for your kiddo, so that you can help co-regulate, get them on track quicker.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think too, I mean, certainly there are behaviors of children that will need to be managed, but I think sometimes what I see a decent amount of is that typical child behaviors are triggering and people are trying to manage it. So something like my toddler wants to wear mismatched clothes to school and we're trying to control that. And oh, what are people going to think if she wears, her princess dress 4 days in a row? Like people might think you didn't watch that enough, but in actuality, she's going to be really happy. And, I think that's what that can do too, is being like, does it really matter if she wants to wear that princess dress every day or if her shorts don't match? She's happy. Or, I think things like that, because I see a lot of people get caught up on things like that, I guess some people may disagree, but I think in the big run, especially when they're young, it doesn't matter because, my children are older now and they're not going to wear a princess dress to school. They care very much what they look like now. But
Yeah.
that's just an example. Or even having a tantrum in public, right? When kids are acting like typical children in public, just those typical child behaviors can be very triggering. And it becomes something that we want to control because we're worried about other people judging. And
Mhm.
that's not necessarily something that we may need to, that may be something that we need to let go of, right? Now, I'm not saying there's not more serious behaviors that absolutely need more intervention, but I think I see a lot of people spending a lot of energy on the behaviors that in the long run aren't as much concern, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And, as you were talking, it was making me think about like so many of our parenting behaviors, right? We also have behaviors are driven by fear, right? Fear that other people are going to think we're inadequate or fear of the future, right? And as you were talking, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I assure you that although your 3-year-old may want to wear that princess dress every day today, it's not a forever thing.
Yeah, they're gonna grow out of it.
Yeah, yeah, but we're so driven by fear, which all that much more reason. And we don't necessarily even know them. Like we're just reacting in the moment, but I view it that it's some type of fear that's driving that. And when our decisions are driven by fear, it goes right back to what we were talking about, right? Like it's harder for us to be in a state of fear when we're being mindful, when we're grounded. That fear, we don't care what some stranger in Walmart thinks about our child's tantrum when we're grounded. But when we're in this state of fear of worrying what other people are going to think, that's when we become reactive.
Right. Or your teenager's attitude, right? Like, okay, well, most teenagers are going to have an attitude, right? We may not like that behavior, but I feel like that's a fairly normal teenage behavior. I think that speaks to like our inner critic, right? Because we're so much of what we're worried about as what other people, so much of what we worry about with what other people will think of us is actually because we think that of ourselves, or maybe we think that of other people too, right? There's this kind of critic and I'm sure you can speak better to this, but like we all have this critical voice, but when you're able to meditate, it's about softening, right? About what are the thoughts that are coming up, which is, oh, I'm a bad mom, I'm letting this happen, or my child's not behaving appropriately, or whatever. And can you extend kindness to yourself and kindness towards yourself to soften that inner critic and soften those thoughts? And I
Yeah.
think that that can kind of like have this beautiful ripple effect where if you're softer towards yourself, you become softer towards your children and towards those around you.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, when I really like that approach and that thought process too. I often when I talk about the fears, um I think I shared with you, but I'm a human design specialist. And so there are places, there are fears that can be part of our design. And so I like that idea of softening. I often focus on it's like each fear is just one side of the coin. And on the other side is this beautiful gift that within each fear is a gift. Um, Sometimes I think people aren't quite ready for that or have been operating out of that fear space for so long that it dictates their thought process. So I love that idea of softening. That might be a gentler approach versus I'm like, all right, the opposite of fear, this fear is that. I like that idea of softening.
Well, that's an
Meditate.
interesting twist that what did you say? Your fears are actually a gift.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful twist on yeah. I mean, well, because right, most of our fears are put in place to protect us,
Mhm.
right? That's why when we're stuck in fight or flight, it's not because our body's broken, it's because we perceive a threat and our body's like, okay, got you. I'm going to put you in a state where you can handle these threats all the time. And unfortunately, we just get stuck there because we perceive emails or deadlines as threats where, used to, of course, that system has been in our body since, I don't know, thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it hasn't evolved. I think we just take in so much information, right? Like it's so overwhelming, the world we live in. I was reading the other day that we take in as much information in one day, which is like a fun fact, in one day as the average highly educated quotes, right? Person took in an entire lifetime 500 years ago. So 500 years ago, that would be like Henry VIII, right? An
Yeah.
entire lifetime. And we take all that information in one day. That is insane.
Yeah.
So I think no wonder we're all overwhelmed and overstimulated and, you know, constantly bracing for like the next bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's too much information. We were not designed, I think, to take that much in on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know. Well, and because we have these big, beautiful brains, right? Like our brain takes the fear of like public speaking, and our body responds much in the same way as it does if we're in the forest and we hear a crack in on a stick, right? That
Yeah.
our body has that same response. And that's where I like when I put myself back to when things were so hard with my son. And like I was in this adrenaline state all the time. Even like I'd be at work and the phone would ring and I would see it would say my local school name on there. And just immediately my body was like in fight or flight mode. And I'm like, what the heck? Like I'm at a meeting at work and my body is physiologically responding as if I were in danger. And I wasn't. I was at a meeting and my phone rang. That's all that happened. But my mind couldn't talk myself out of that. And
Right.
so
Your shoulders tense up, you clench your jaw. Yeah, we've all
yeah.
been there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It is wild the way the human body works. And I love pulling in all of these different tools to help parents really connect back with themselves because what a fascinating fact you just shared with us. But yeah, we do take in too much. We're overstimulated all the time in a way that our body really isn't designed for. We're designed to be connected to earth. We're designed tap into our intuition and um to to really like instinctually know what our kids need from us. But all of this junk outside of us has really conditioned our brain to think that all the answers are out there somewhere.
Yeah,
And
God, that's
if
such a
they're
good
not,
point. I think
not,
that's such a
not
good
that,
point.
oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think too, like the quiet, I think can be very because we live in this go, 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 information incoming all the time world. I challenge my clients to do just like a 2 minutes of silence. So like put your phone down and just sit in silence for 2 minutes. Put your phone slightly out of reach. Set the
Mhm.
timer, put the phone slightly out of reach, and just sit in silence for 2 minutes. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable, even with that 2 minutes, with no information coming in and no noises, right? And I think that's very telling. A lot of us are uncomfortable with without having something to busy our brains,
Yeah.
right? So it can be a very uncomfortable feeling. It feels very good for us to do that. But the first time you do that, it can be very uncomfortable to just sit with your thoughts, with your silence, with your, with what's happening in that moment can be.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it can be very rewarding once you get a little more accustomed to it. It becomes something that you crave.
I know I am very intentional about this. I mean, I think myself, like most others, got so addicted to, like any moment you have, you're like, ooh, what's on Facebook? Ooh, what's in my email? What's here? What's here? And so I've been trying to be very intentional, not only at home, but like I go to a doctor's appointment in the waiting room. It used to be like, oh, you're scrolling through, and now I'm like, there's nothing in there for me. I don't need it. If somebody needs a response, I'll get to it later. Right now I'm not working right now. And so to just take that time to be quiet with myself, observe other people, just to be grounded. And it's interesting how less anxious I am going into doctor's appointments, for example, when I'm not going from like, you check in and then as soon as you sit down, you're scrolling through your phone and then, suddenly you hear your name called and you like shift from this to this to this. It's too much for us, for all of us.
I think so. I always like to think of like, what are you opening up space for,
Yeah.
right? I took my kid to the pediatrician the other day, and I did the same thing, right? It's very tempting to scroll on your phone, but I wasn't going to let her be on
Yeah.
her devices. So she had a notebook, and I was like, well, she can't be on hers, so I'm not going to be on mine either. So I
Yeah.
chose to set it down, and we were able to talk about what's she doing in her notebook? Are you writing a story? Are you drawing pictures to go with it? Right. And we're able to have a little bit of time that was meaningful. Are you nervous about going to the doctor? Or I don't know. Are they going to give me a shot? Right. Right. So we're having like a much more productive conversation in those 5 or 10 minutes that you're waiting, as opposed to, ignoring each other or whatever. Right. So it becomes an opportunity to further connect.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Um, oh, there's so much goodness in this whole discussion about just really taking care of ourselves, taking care of, and being so intentional and mindful about who we're being for our kids too, right? I love
Right.
you saying that about the notebook, right? Because it would be so easy to be like, oh, she's busy. This is my time to grab my phone. I see it happen everywhere. I'll never forget. It was a few years ago, and we had gone out for a dinner. It was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. We had gone out for a family dinner, and we looked over at this table next to us, and Dad is on his phone. He was like gambling. Mom is on her phone. I couldn't see what she was doing. The toddler was on their phone, and the baby had a tablet up in front of them. And I was like, What has happened to society? And it's impossible to be grounded and connected with who you are. And
Yeah.
it's impossible to make connections with other humans.
Yeah. Why are you even in the same room if you're all on the device?
I know, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So I could talk about technology forever, but that's not why you came here.
I
But I,
know. Well, and I think yeah, it's hard for all of us, right? It's everywhere and it's tempting and it's easy. So it's always trying to check that, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, it does very much tie into what you're talking about in that as parents, it's so key for us to realize that we're not being selfish when we're taking care of ourselves. It is a
It's
necessary,
crucial.
I think it's a necessary part of our role as parents. We we made a conscious decision to bring these humans into our life, whether through birth or adoption or foster care, however our kids ended up in our life. We made a decision. Um, and so I think it's our duty to decide how we want them to view themselves through us, because the way our kids create their worldview about how to be is by watching everything that we do. So
Yeah,
that self-care is so key.
I agree. Um, yeah, and I think just remembering, I think sometimes I think offering yourself forgiveness for various things, right? I think if, because we're all going to mess up at some point. So I always say, like, some of the signs that you're stuck in fight or flight are when you're like snapping over small things, right? Like somebody loaded the dishwasher wrong and you're like losing your mind. Or, um, what would be just an, or, crying at seemingly small things, right? Like where it's just like the tip of the iceberg because you've been bearing it, holding it in, holding it in, holding it in, holding it in, and then all of a sudden you just lose it. I think, the opposite can be true where there's so many things on your to-do list that you just shut down or you withdraw. Maybe you're not going to social activities, things like that. Those are all kind of signs that we're stuck in this fight or flight state. And I think so many people, so many of us, we don't realize, right? It's just become our normal. So
Mhm.
I think, you know, there's an element of like if you snap at somebody for, example, the dishwasher or whatever, there usually is this element of like guilt or shame that happened. So giving yourself the space to, forgive yourself, accept, yeah, that happened. I'm gonna not do it again. I'm gonna slow down and realize, maybe that's not the most important thing, right? So I think just realizing that though that is a huge indicator that maybe we need to take some time for ourselves, right? Like those are some of the signs that will tell us, okay, I'm not taking enough time for me, right? Or
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's great. And our body tells us, right? Like it's not like this weird mystery. Our body is usually screaming at us like, "Hey, you're not taking good care of yourself." I know it's yeah, something I've been dealing with. I've been like too busy working and growing my business, and my lower back is like, "You need to slow down and take care of yourself." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that later." And then the next day it's like screaming louder. Um, that's how
so
it
we're
goes.
trying to recognize that early, right?
Yep.
Don't wait till it's screaming for you to go to the doctor, right? But
Yeah.
it's easier said than done because we all just want to, oh, later, later, later. I have so much to do, right? It's so common.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was listening this morning, I was listening to oh, I love this book, the top five regrets of the dying. And I don't know if you've listened to it
Write
before,
that
but
down. No.
it's such a beautiful book. And she at the end she talks about like this is so common, right? Like we don't want to take care of ourselves because we're so busy taking care of everybody else, but we can't give what we don't have. And so yeah, we think we're, being the world's best mom or the best employee or the best whatever, but we're not fully giving ourselves because we're not fully being ourselves. We're not it's impossible to give from an empty cup, right?
Yeah, but a lot of us were raised in that self-sacrificing culture where
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
rewarded and applauded. Oh, look, she's so selfless. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
becomes to our own detriment. And
It definitely comes at a cost.
And
Um,
I think then ultimately to the detriment of those around us, right?
Yep.
Because are you making dinner and doing dishes and for everyone else? Yes, you are. But are you doing it happily? No, you're probably starting to resent the people in
Mhm.
your life, right? So
Yeah. Or we're snapping at them because they're in the kitchen in our way because we have so many things we have to do, or,
why are
yeah,
you
just
here and you're not helping? Get out of the way, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yep. We've all been there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why are you standing in front of every drawer I need?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious because this is something that I have worked through and I think I'm in a good place now. But I know when I first started to create a routine, right? Like your suggestion about get up 5 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier, whatever it is. And, at first it was almost like I use willpower, like I'm gonna get up, I set my alarm, I get up, and then, something happens. We're away for the weekend, or I accidentally miss my alarm, like I get off track, and then and then it's like, well, I guess now I'm off track again. Like keeping myself in a momentum is hard. And I know that I've heard that from other parents too. So give suggestions or thoughts about how to help the listeners create a routine that they really embrace and they're not using willpower to force themselves to do it.
Yeah, it has to be something that works with your schedule. I will say very openly, I am not a morning person. I hate mornings. So it did take initially some willpower for me to do that, but now it's become like I don't like the way I function when I don't do it.
Mm.
So that extra time in the morning is really like almost sacred to me, right? Like it is
Yeah.
going to happen. And my kids are not as young anymore, so I don't have to worry about them like waking up before an alarm anymore, which I do admit is like an advantage when your kids are a little older. When they were young, sometimes you wake up and you tiptoe and they still hear you like, making tea
Uh-huh.
or coffee. So it was a moot point. It didn't always work when they were little. First of all, I would say forgiveness and kindness, right? It's not gonna be perfect when you first start a new routine. Um, and then just knowing that you have to, just kind of get back on the horse, right? You fall off the wagon, you get back on. All right. I think mindfulness and this kind of approach to healing, and it doesn't happen overnight. I had a friend who was like, "So what's the secret?" And I was like, "No, girl, there is no secret. Like, you,
Yes.
first of all, this is openly available information, but it's not like you do something once and you're done and you're cured, right? It is kind of like a diet, right? You can't eat one salad and lose 20 pounds. You
Hmm.
have to eat healthy for weeks, right? For months. So, and just like with diets, you're gonna go to a potluck and eat junk food that's, tastes delicious, but maybe not good for you. And then the next day you kind of get back on the horse, eat some veggies, whatever. So I think looking at it as more of trying to build consistency and forgiving yourself when you don't, right? So we're going to do whatever practice works for us. So another thing you can do is incorporate. So that was the kind of the first piece is you fall off, no big deal, get back on. And then the second piece is the more you can tie it to your everyday activities, the better. So um, mornings continue to be a little bit chaotic in our house, right? There's just a lot, where are our shoes? We don't know. We're not dressed. We're walking around brushing our hair, and it's like we've only brushed this one little part of our hair for 20 minutes and still we're not done, right? So mornings tend to be just kind of a mess. So for me, I just have to step away and know like even if I step away and take 3 to 5 breaths and feel my feet on the ground, she's still going to be brushing her hair in the same
Yeah.
place where it's not where it's not actually doing any good. But it's not going to put us behind so much that we're going to ruin our day or miss car line or whatever. So I try to make time whenever I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, nobody's listening, just take a minute, right? If you're 3 minutes late, who cares? So, and more than likely, it's not going to be that. So anyway, finding time to just step away and take a minute, taking 2 deep breaths before you take a sip of water, or even just one long breath where you're pulling the air all the way into the belly and then opening the mouth, sighing all the way out, allowing it to relax your muscles before you take a pull of water, before you eat. Maybe you take 3 deep breaths before you eat. Maybe whenever you walk through a doorway, you stop and feel your feet on the ground. So just tying it to your everyday events. When my kids were little, they didn't like their car seats. So I would put them in the car seat, but before I buckled, I would just take a few deep breaths because I didn't want that to be an unpleasant experience for both of us, right?
Yeah.
So taking a few deep breaths would help calm me so that I could better get her into the car seat, get them into the car seat. So things like that, whatever works in your life, tying these small practices, rituals. So like for me, I have like a lavender lotion that I put on every night before bed. So it's just about like engaging your senses. Deep breaths are always, always, always going to be great, but engaging your sense of smell. So like a diffuser, maybe a favorite candle, um, soft music, whatever works. Everybody has things that become like your favorite thing, right? So
Hmm.
it's a little different for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And yeah, I'd kind of shared like when I first started doing all this like inner work, that was the direction, is get up. We were instructed to get up an hour early, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like an extra hour, that's a lot. And
Oh,
so I would,
sleep is important too.
and she had some specific things, but she was going off this thought process that high achievers wake up early. And I was like, well, but do all of them? Like all of them? I don't believe it now at all. And she has since changed her thought process because we are all designed so differently. But I feel like it was such a high standard that I struggled to meet. And so when I started being softer with myself, I love that word. When I started being softer with myself, and I would sometimes sleep through my alarm because I stayed up late working. I am such a night owl. Or I just slept through my alarm. I would, remind myself like I can't do it right now, and that's okay because I'm going to find a time during my day where I can do the things that I wanted to do. I have practices of like writing down or repeating my goal that I'm working towards to really keep my mind in a forward growth process. Now tapping is part of my daily routine too. And just quiet, right? Just having some quiet time. Sometimes I have just quiet. Sometimes I use like a binaural sound frequencies. If I'm struggling to quiet,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
can.
that can be very helpful.
Um,
Um,
but
well, I
yes.
think too for your night owl, like I will never journal in the morning. That's not a thing. Like I won't. I'm doing good to have thoughts in the morning. I am not. Like meditating in the morning is great for me. I don't have a lot of thoughts in the morning anymore. Um, but at night, I tend to have a lot of thoughts, like because I lean night owl like you, and like journaling can be a fantastic thing when you, especially if you're having trouble sleeping, because I feel like night owls, and maybe this isn't everyone, but certainly it, if your brain is awake at night,
Hmm.
it can interfere with your sleep, right? So it's helpful to get all those things out of your mind and onto paper, whatever those thoughts may be, can be really beneficial too. So that would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
better for a night owl, maybe.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I mean, you shared so many great strategies. Is there anything that you want to make sure that you get out there that you haven't already said? I think you gave us a ton, but I don't want you to feel like you didn't share something.
No, I appreciate asking. I think kind of the core of what I do, which I don't think I mentioned, which probably the most important thing is syncing movement with breath, is a huge part of what I do in my yoga practice. Like most of my yoga is very, very beginner friendly. We're not actually doing very much of a workout. It's just moving with breath. And so that movement with breath can bring you pretty quickly out of a fight or flight state and into a rest or digest state. Um, so if you can find a way to do that, or if you um, want to follow me, I have little practices like that on my pages. That could be a place to start.
Yeah, so where can listeners find you?
Yeah, I have my website is www.balancedyogatn.com, and my Instagram handles are the same. So it's just at Balanced Yoga TN. Facebook is the same. I certainly post regularly. I have a nervous system quiz. If anyone is like, oh, I'm not really sure if I'm stuck in fight or flight, I have a quiz on my website that you can do for free. And we have like some recommendations of some quick ways that you can get out of it if you are stuck into it.
Oh, that's very cool. I'll definitely be checking that out. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I know this one's gonna get a lot of listens. I think that this was a great topic that's so aligned with where all parents are at, quite frankly. And I know my listeners could really benefit from all that you're doing. So thank you for sharing your gifts with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, well, take care and we will talk soon.
All right. Bye bye.